Hello and welcome to another Brawl video. Today we're checking out Gonti, Knight Minister, as voted on by my supporters on Patreon in the weekly poll. This 4 mana 3/4, and we'll start with the bottom half of the card. It says whenever a creature we control deals combat damage to an opponent, we get to exile the top card of that player's library and play that card for as long as it remains exiled, while ignoring any potential color requirements. And if we also control Gonti while casting a spell we don't own, like those spells in exile, we get to make a treasure token, so that'll make it easier to cast multiple spells in the same turn. Now, Gonti's first ability is actually symmetrical, so if our opponent were to somehow cast cards from our library, they also get a treasure token, but it's a lot more relevant in multiplayer games, where Gonti essentially incentivizes opponents to attack each other, so they get to exile the top card of each other's libraries, but your library will be unaffected. So Gonti is very powerful as kind of a card draw engine, as long as you have enough evasive creatures to enable it, so they can keep attacking the opponent while exiling their cards, and this ability will trigger once for each creature that hits the opponent, so if you have 2 or 3 creatures hitting the opponent, you'll get to exile 2 or 3 cards. You can also play lands from exile, although those won't be making any treasure tokens. So now I've split up the deck into a few different categories to help with the breakdown. The first category is mana acceleration, nice to play Gonti on turn 3 and cast our more expensive spells ahead of schedule. Then we've got a ton of 1 mana evasive creatures, lots of them have flying, some are unblockable, some just have death touch to disincentivize the opponent from blocking, and all of those are great for enabling Gonti's ability, so we can hopefully exile lots of cards. Then we've got some discard effects to take cards from the opponent's hand, to maybe take away removal or other answers for Gonti. Then we've got a lot of spot removal, since we don't really want to play a lot of sweepers in a deck that relies on all these 1 mana flyers, so instead we're better off playing lots of spot removal to control the opponent's board. And then we've got more card draw engines in case Gonti doesn't work out, or just to complement Gonti's ability. And then the miscellaneous section has some more powerful Liliana planeswalkers and more ways to gain life for closeout games like Grey Merchant. So that's the deck in a nutshell. Now starting out with a deep dive with our mana acceleration. Chromox, a recent addition to the format, also very powerful. Dark Ritual can be a way to play Gonti on turn 2 already. And then we've got our 2 mana artifacts, Arcane Signet, Cold Steel Heart, Guardian Idol, Mindstone, Solar Transformer, and the Iron Crag. And then Worn Power Stone can untap, making 2 mana. And then the Grim Hireling can make 2 treasures if we manage to hit the opponent. It's maximum 2 treasures even if we connect with multiple creatures, but we can also sacrifice treasures to shrink opposing creatures down, so it can also double up as removal. And then a Caged Sun, of course on black, can essentially double our mana while pumping the team, can also be quite useful. And then taking a look at our evasive creatures, lots of 1 mana flyers, like the Battlefly Swarm can also gain Death Touch, Blightkeeper. There's a Pteramander, which we could eventually adapt. Eye Collector can mill each player if it hits. Eye Twitch doesn't have a sideboard to grab lessons from, but we do get to discard a card and draw when it dies. There's a Dream Thief, surveils when it enters. The Stinger cannot block. There's Pilfering Imp, which can also be used to make the opponent discard a card. And then we've got Hope of Girapur, which can also be sacrificed, preventing the opponent from casting non-creature spells on the following turn. And then Volt Scourge we can cast on turn 1 by paying 2 life as a 1/1 flying lifelink. And then we also have the Changeling Outcast, which is the best one since it's straight up unblockable. And then rounding out these 1-drops, there's Tiny Bones with Death Touch, can also maybe cast spells from the opponent's graveyard, which would also trigger Gonti. And then a Vampire of the Dire Moon with Death Touch and Lifelink. And finally Bitter Blossom, making 1/1 fairy rogue tokens with flying each turn at the cost of 1 life, so that can also generate an army of flyers to then set up Gonti for us. And then our discard spells mainly focus on taking away opposing interaction, so we don't really care about discard spells that can only take away creatures. Instead we have Duress, Inquisition, and Thoughtseize at 1 mana. Deep Cavern Bat can take a card from the opponent's hand while also being an evasive creature to enable Gonti. Cruel Claw's Heist we can cast for 2 mana, or we can play it for 2 mana while gifting a card, in which case we can also play a card that the opponent owns, triggering Gonti in the process to make an extra treasure. And then Grief we can sometimes evoke or cast it for 4 mana as a 3/2 with Menace, so that can also be quite nice with Gonti in play. Then we've got a lot of spot removal, starting out at 1 mana with Cut Down and Fatal Push. Can even cast a March of Wretched Sorrow by pitching some black cards from hand, gaining us life in the process. At 2 mana, I like Bitter Triumph, as it can also hit Planeswalkers, similar to Shieldred's Edict. And then Feed the Swarm, one of the rare answers to enchantments in black. And then some of my favorite 2 mana instants include Go for the Throat, Heartless Act, and Shoot the Sheriff, since they will usually find a target no matter which matchup you're playing. Consuming Corruption is one of the payoffs for having lots of swamps in your mana base, so this can also gain us a lot of life back. Liliana of the Veil can make the opponent sack a creature or discard. Flare of Malice is pretty good in a deck with lots of 1 mana creatures that you can sacrifice as an alternate cost. We've got a Liliana of the Dark Realms, which can also take out an opposing creature, another payoff for controlling lots of swamps. And then Rankle can also hit the opponent with haste and flying, and maybe make each player sacrifice a creature repeatedly. And then we've already covered the March. And then our card draw now also includes Dark Confident, revealing the top card of our library at the beginning of our upkeep and putting it in hand, losing a life equal to its mana value, so it can be a little risky if we reveal a 6 mana card, but for the most part our curve is relatively low. We've got lots of 1 mana cards, lands don't cost us any life, so overall I've been liking the inclusion. Then we've got lots of 3 mana enchantments that can draw cards, Black Market Connections also making treasures or shapeshifters. We've got our Phyrexian Arena drawing an extra card at the cost of 1 life. The 2 Necro enchantments can also exchange life total for extra cards in hand. Gix also draws us cards when we hit the opponent with our flyers. Nashi we can cheat into play through Ninjutsu, and this only costs 3 as opposed to the paper version, which is normally 4, so it's even better here. And this can also cast spells for free by just paying a life instead. And then Bolas' Citadel, another way to exchange life total for extra cards off the top of the deck. And Outrageous Robbery also has a great synergy with Gonti, can also exile a ton of cards from the opponent's library. And then the miscellaneous section has the original Gonti, which of course also has great synergy. Shieldred can help us gain some life to offset all the life loss from those card draw enchantments. Grey Merchant can also gain us life back while draining the opponent, can be an excellent finisher, since we have a lot of devotion built into those enchantments and our various planeswalkers. And finally, the 2 6-mana Lilianas can also take over a game by themselves, drawing extra cards and controlling the board for us. And then the mana base has 36 swamps. Want to keep that number as high as possible since we have a lot of payoffs for controlling lots of swamps, including a Cabal Stronghold, which can also give us a nice mana boost the more swamps we control. We've got Urborg, turning all lands into swamps, including the Stronghold itself and some of our other non-basics, so that's also quite valuable. And then Nykthos can also give us a nice mana boost equal to our devotion to black. And I still like a Phyrexian Tower, sometimes sacrificing a 1-drop to give us an extra mana. So yeah, that's our deck. Now let's jump into some games and see how the deck does. Alright, we're on the draw, facing Ketramose, so an exile control deck. We have Inquisition to maybe take away some interaction, and then the plan is to kind of snowball the early advantage with Gonti. But yeah, Chromok's already setting up a turn 2 Ketramose potentially. And wow, opponent's hand's just a bunch of sweepers. So not much to trigger Ketramose. But it's gonna take us a while to get our creatures going as well. Rankle can make them sacrifice their commander. I would rather just play Gonti here. And then Playcrafter can also answer Ketramose, although Thalia could be a lot of fun with Gonti, Lord of Luxury. So I might try that instead. Does count as a card in exile for Ketramose, but it's only temporarily. Alright, opponent wipes the board. Necrodominance is a good one, especially with Nykthos as well. I may as well show them Urborg, since they have double black already. Yeah, this could be a Necro end of turn Thalia turn. Although we have to be careful, because cards will get exiled by this, so that will help Ketramose as well. But yeah, Rankle can answer it. Sure, we'll Necro. And then end of turn, pay 4 life. Liliana can also answer Ketramose. Maybe get rid of Vampire and feed the Swarm. Set this up to 4. Massacre Worm, alright. Son of turn Felia. Untap. And then we're looking at maybe Liliana. Deal with Massacre Worm.
You wish you had a fraction of my power.
Since with Urborg we have 5 swamps.
I command death itself.
Felia attacks. And then if I flicker Chromox, the imprint goes away, so they lose that mana. Unless they pitch another card. And then we'll draw 2. Alright, so we're starting to make a little bit of progress. Opponent's gonna Wrath Felia. And we get to take our turn without too many concerns. Get the connection going. And then we can still Gonti and Imp. Rankle's got haste anyway. And draw 3. Solemn will ramp. But yeah, Ketramose hasn't done too much this game. Here I'll just go for Treasure and might as well draw with Necro as opposed to the connections, since we have stuff we can do in hand already. And then can play Rankle. Attack with everyone. Now these cards will end up in exile, which does benefit Ketramose. No need to do anything, I don't think. Could have let them draw to then Thoughtseize, but our life total is also under a bit of pressure. So then now Sentinel, Tiny Bones and Claws. Ketramose was close to attacking there. And draw 3. And that's some powerful cards in hand. Lotho still doesn't exile anything. Not going to use the Scrabbling Claws if I can help it. Make a Treasure. And then now between Rankle and Liliana we should be able to clean up. So let's just make some mana here.
Let us march into battle and make new comrades.
-4. Sack Sentinel, and so I guess Ketramose will be able to block. So then Tiny Bones doesn't get to attack. Could have also gotten rid of Gonti and then just replayed it. So Ketramose is active. Can Thoughtseize to have a look. Take a Signet. Attack with my Flyers. Sacrifice a creature. And that's it. Alright, and then play Guardian Idol. At this point I might be fine just sacking this since there's enough cards in exile already. And pass a turn. We have to be a little bit careful between Arena and the connections, that we don't just die. Gearhulk was a good top deck. Goes for Rankle. Ooh, outrageous robbery with this many treasures. Can play Liliana first. Increase our devotion for Nykthos some more. Get rid of the Gearhulk, attack, and then a robbery for 1,000,000. Could also send in my Guardian Idol, I suppose.
Time to get my hands dirty.
Chupacabra, Exercise. Can hit the Chromox. Yeah, let's just robbery for 10. We'll be conservative. And what did we get? Obsidian can gain us some life, although we don't want to exile it because then our opponent will control it. Kaya can gain life. Yeah, I guess we would like to gain some life here. We'll get treasures from Gonti, so we can cast multiple spells.
Oh, I like a good fight. Notice I didn't say fair. Funny, that's what
Play a Hive. Could exercise the Chromox. And that looks good enough to me. Just a lance, and then next turn we should be able to cross the finish line with Hive and Guardian Idol. Dismember also clean answer to Ketramose, or we could Journey to Nowhere it. Yeah, we did actually get pretty low on life. And our opponent scoops it up. Awesome. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, facing Harbin, blue-white soldiers. So they're gonna have some evasive creatures of their own, but yeah, this is not an outlaw. So lots of 1-mana flyers to start out. And then hopefully we can follow up with Gonti. A Warden's okay for now. Would still rather double 1-drop. But yeah, we're still 2 lines away from Gonti, so that might take us a second. 2 artifacts for the Terramander, so can eventually adapt. And there's Harbin, kind of the natural play. Mox Amber can also make a mana. And they can activate Warden. Alright, so we don't need to shoot Harbin just yet. Can have a look with Cruel Claw's Heist. Signet was a good draw, so now if we draw lands we can actually play Gonti next turn. But then Harbin's probably going to be getting in the way. Milled another flyer. So yeah, opponent off to a great start with Mox Amber. Warden's eventually also going to fly. So we've got some problems to deal with. A Recruiter can get Solitude. Yeah, so that can answer Gonti. So now we are going to need to Cruel Claw's Heist first. A Warden grows. And Grief. Well, I guess one elemental deserves another. I think I still start with Heist. Probably gifting the opponent a card at this point. Can maybe find something useful. Opponent's gonna Solitude now, since they didn't want to give it to us. And they pitched Thalia. Charmander down. And we've got a Guardian and a Ranger. Ranger's pretty good, getting more 1-drops. So I'll take that. And then there's no real need to Grief right now. They do also have Eiganjo as removal. So there's still a lot of issues we need to deal with. Probably need to start by taking out the Warden. Double blocking is not going to work out in the face of Eiganjo. So then I guess we can shoot the Sheriff. Or we can wait. Wouldn't be attacking into Eiganjo. Can maybe waste their mana. Opponent moves to attackers. They need 5 to trigger Harbin, so we'll let them. They get to enlist. Bottom, bottom. Opponent also has to take Gonti's ability into account here. And then try and shoot the Warden. And then next turn we might finally get our first hit in if we can draw land for Gonti. Alright, so let me Grief pitching maybe Author Gonti, just to make sure this works. Of course, I can still channel Eiganjo, take out one of my flyers, but the other one will still hit. And I don't think we'll have time to cast Grief and Gonti. Hireling seems more useful. So we could actually go for Hireling if we just value the treasures. Still have Ranger Captain as well. Ooh, Swords and Cyclonic Rift. That's 2 powerful interactive cards. So I guess we'll take the Swords. Could still go for Grim Hireling. And then they could both channel Eiganjo and Rift. But now they will be able to keep Harbin back on defense going forward. So yeah, they will bounce Hireling, so then they don't need to channel Eiganjo. But they might still do it. Volt Scourge down. Okay, so at least we got rid of their entire hand. But we are still behind on board. Harbin's gonna turtle up. Guardian gets to hit for 3 and scry. They did keep one on top. So a Ranger Captain could get a 1-drop that can set up a profitable attack next turn. Might be better than playing Gonti now. So then, I guess Outcast is unblockable. And pass a turn. Ooh, Ranger of Eos. That's the better version of Ranger Captain. So our opponent can get 2 more 1-mana soldiers. And then next turn fly the team with Harbin. So we'll need to get pretty lucky here to survive. Officer and Guide. They're still maybe gonna enlist first, see if they need to discard the Officer. Which, yeah, I guess I'll take them up on it. That way if we draw 1 spot removal spell, we're not necessarily facing a flying army of soldiers. Although they could also let the trade happen. I guess discarding makes more sense. They could have also kept a bad card on top, knowing about Gonti. Although the play might actually be Hireling, hit with Outcast, and then Hireling can sack to take out the Recruiter. Yeah, that's probably the play. Could even take out Harbin himself. This did not die yet. So we have to do this now. Probably get rid of the Guardian now. Yeah, I suppose I could have used this twice to take out 2 one-toughness creatures. So having them play the recruitment officer might have lined up better for us. And did our opponent top deck a soldier? We don't know yet. Now I probably go for Gonti. Attack with Outcast. And get some triggers. Flare of Denial do not have any blue creatures, but I would like to keep that available as a counterspell. So then I guess we're not doing anything with the Hireling or the Dark Confidence. Authority is acceptable. Have to keep this for a game-ending threat. And wow, our opponent explodes. Yeah, now with the unblockable Outcasts, Gonti, and Hireling, we get to pretty quickly decimate the opponent's board while providing extra card advantage. Awesome, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw, facing Captain Howler, blue-red discard. Our hand is not good at answering the Captain, cut down doesn't take care of it. So we're kind of just hoping to ramp out a Bolas's Citadel. Well, maybe the 1/1 flyers can trigger Gonti. It's not a terrible plan. Just we'll probably need to find an answer to their commander, because that card can almost win the game single-handedly. Opponent's got a Confounding Conundrum, not particularly good in this matchup, but very good at punishing multicolor mana bases with fetch lanes. Happy to cut down the Looter. And then can decide between Signet or Bitter Blossom. But yeah, it's a close call actually. If I go Signet, I can play Gonti next turn. Although maybe the sooner we get flyers going, the better. And Blue-Red's not going to have ways to destroy our enchantment at least. Fable's also pretty good. Alright, so now our turn's not quite as exciting. But at least they're missing out on Chapter 2 in the sense that they don't have their commander in play. So then next turn we could either try Gonti or the Hireling if we're more interested in treasure tokens. Alright, never mind. Opponent's got a flying blocker now. Flare of Malice is a good one. I guess never mind, it's non-token. So do we just cast it for 4? If this attacks next turn, that's gonna hurt. So we're just kind of trying to preserve our life total to set up Bolas's Citadel. I guess I'll cast it now. And then I could maybe represent a double block on the Shaman, but opponent's probably happy to make that trade. And I would rather keep my tokens. They did miss out on a speed by not playing it first. Alright, so could go for Citadel, but if we immediately see a land on top, we're kind of stuck. Or we could try Hireling, attack, make 2 treasures, play Gonti second main, or just go for Gonti and hope that the opponent has some removal on top we can cast. And then Citadel's going to be better if we haven't played a land for turn yet. Alright, Ghostly Pilfer I can still cast. Probably still want the swamps in play since some of our cards get better the more swamps we control. And a Disruption will counter before we get the treasure. Fair enough. It's not like I needed the Ghostly Pilfer, although it would have been nice. Alright, so can our opponents present lethal this turn? Just copying the Goblin. And Captain Howler I could try to double block. Yeah, that's probably worth a shot. Spot removal on the fairy means I just lose Gonti, but if they have discard effects, Captain Howler could deal a lot of damage. So the alternative would have been block the 2/2 with Gonti and chump Captain Howler with the fairy. Opponent's gonna draw and discard. Which I guess also could have pumped the Shaman that we blocked with Gonti to finish it off. And gets rid of an Invisible Stalker. Right, so the trade worked. Back to the command zone. We are down to 12. So can't really leverage Citadel too much. And our opponent's got a flying blocker that can now also get in the way of our fairies. So yeah, I guess we're just on Citadel here. Shoot the Sheriff. This is a rogue, so that doesn't work. We'll take out the Reflection. Yeah, one way to tell it's an outlaw is with a cowboy hat. That's usually a good indication. Cruel Claws Heist. Yeah, I guess we'll play that still. With or without gifting. Let's do without. Probably want to get rid of the explosion now. Tiny Bones is 1 life. And nice, we found the Consuming Corruption, that's what we wanted. Can gain us 6 life back. And I can attack with my flyers. So that was an amazing Citadel turn. Probably fine to trade Tiny Bones for the Shaman. Want to preserve our life total for Citadel and Bitter Blossom. Opponent's gonna refresh their hand. They can still replay Captain Howler, but at least they're tapped out. So would love to find some more removal. Liliana counts, so that's 4 life. Inquisition's 1 life, probably still worth it.
Ruining your day is going to feel
Alright, and our opponent scoops it up, I'll take it. I guess we would have to pay 2 life to target Captain Howler, it's 2 mana and 2 life to pay the ward, so we would get pretty low, although we could also pump a fairy with the -3 ability after playing Swamp, so we hit for 10, and then 10 more damage from Bolas' Citadel would be lethal, so we would just have to play the Grim Hireling to make some more treasures for us, and then we should get there. Sweet, on to the next one. Alright, we're on the play, facing a Vendilion Clique deck. So, blue deck with lots of counter spells. This card is good, but The rest of our hand is not ideal. Light on lanes. No ways to enable Gonti if we do get to resolve it. So I think I still got a mulligan. This is a little bit better. Hope of Girapur as our evasive creature to enable Gonti. Can't even go Signet into Eye Twitch. There's no lesson sideboard in Brawl, but we can always discard and draw with the Eye Twitch if it dies. Alright. So we get to resolve Gonti and then trigger it twice. Seems better than playing a Phyrexian Arena. So this was pretty much the ideal start. Don't think I'm sacking Hope. And yeah, our opponent scoops it up, can play a lane, Cyclonic Rift, make a treasure, and we're pretty far ahead. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, facing Sab-Sunen, so the blue-green god. Our hand is okay. Of course, Shoot the Sheriff won't be able to destroy their commander, but can slow down their other mana elves. And then, yeah, Vault Scourge to go with Gonti. Can play it turn 3, thanks to the Cold Steel Heart, potentially. And then we gotta hope that Gonti hits some powerful things of the opponent's deck as well. Do you have an elf? You do. So now, do we still Cold Steel Heart? I think we do. And then might still be beneficial to just play Gonti next turn instead of disrupting the opponent. But there's of course a balance between progressing our own game plan and slowing down the opponents. Because if they can play their god, an indestructible reach creature is pretty tough to get past. So with a Lotus Cobra now, yeah, I guess there's no real way I can stop Sab-Sunen if they have a land. So I guess I'm not gonna bother. Just play Gonti, attack, and then hope that our opponent's deck provides answers. Counterspell would be nice, but probably gonna be a turn late. So there's the uncounterable god. And it can already block. So this turn, no attack with Vault Scourge, but I can have a look with Thoughtseize. See, Snakeskin Veil had Anna's Climb, so that's also a way for them to put more counters on their creatures. Snakeskin Veil stops Shoot the Sheriff, and they are keeping that available right now. But how much does it matter? Can just take the Hadana's Climb. Keep up Counterspell. And pass. I guess Snakeskin Veil is also a way to put a counter on their god, so it can maybe once again block. Or attack if they played proactively. So yeah, pretty tricky matchup. Either way, they're drawing a lot of extra cards here. Channel Otawara, can't even counterspell it, that's rough. So yeah, this game seems over already. Alright, so if I were to play Gonti and attack with Vault Scourge, if we're careful, I guess we can counterspell the Snakeskin Veil before they get a chance to block. Opponent goes for it. And I'll play the Mystic, make a treasure. Do we want to grief? So yeah, next turn this can block again. Shieldred is pretty good at punishing it. So maybe we hold grief to try and resolve Shieldred next turn. And have that as our win condition. So make some mana. Can just hardcast a grief at this point. And our opponent's just holding lanes. So Shieldred will resolve. And we'll punish the opponent for drawing cards. But we're still not in a position to attack. So our opponent loses 2. Now 4 more life. And our opponent concedes. Yeah, I guess Shieldred lines up pretty well in the matchup. On to the next one. Alright, we're on the play, facing Davriel, so it's going to be the mono-black mirror. Well, I've got a reasonable hand. Missing some mana acceleration to play Gonti ahead of schedule, but some evasive creatures to hopefully hit the opponent, and yeah, in the mirror match, all of the opponent's cards are going to be pretty good. Probably won't be sacrificing Hope of Girapur anytime soon. Opponent had the fatal push anyway. Alright, let's check out their hand first. Virtue can answer my creature, pretty far from Gristlebrand. Alright, so take the Virtue, play Blightkeeper. And then I'm not sure what they're gonna find with a Wishclaw. Flare is also online. But sadly this turn we're just gonna have to pass it back. Hope they didn't pick up a removal spell. And then now Gonti hits you for 1. Alright, can Mind Spike them next turn. And there's Davriel. Flare of Malice could get rid of Davriel, but we can just attack it as well.
Trust me, you won't refuse my offer.
Maybe we'll finish it off with a March, so creatures can still attack to enable Gonti. So spells cost a black less to cast, but our opponent loses life for each creature they control. Okay. Still pretty strong. And then I think I'll start by just attacking my opponent directly, since this only triggers if we hit players, I believe. Yes. Might find a land as well. Alright, Snow-Covered Swamp it is, and wow, opponent scoops it up. But yeah, we would get to Mind Spike, make a treasure, use our March to finish off Davriel, still keep up removal, so we were in pretty good shape. On to the next one. Alright, we're on the play, facing Ral, blue-red kind of control. We're missing an early enabler for Gonti, although the Black Market Connections is pretty good in this matchup. So maybe I'll still try this. Any 1-mana flyers are good. 2-mana ramp cards are welcome. How about a Dark Confidant? May not survive, but pretty fun if it does stick around for a few turns. It's gonna be a Sapphire Medallion discounting blue spells. And we found a Bitter Blossom, so a bit of life loss here, but greatness at any cost, as they say. So now could also attack, set up Nashi, or we could just Bitter Blossom plus Outcast and wait on the connections. Maybe getting connections going is still better, since it's easier to sneak in these 1 and 2 drops later. Ninjutsu is potentially way past a counterspell. Opponent's gonna Geist Wave bounce connections. Always nice to reveal a land, and now Grief can also have a look. So we've got a ton of great options. Probably a Grief turn. Pitching, at this point, maybe Gonti is kind of pricey, or the Bitter Blossom, since the life loss is starting to add up. So yeah, let's maybe start there. And then we can still connections plus Outcast. Opponent's going to counter here. So now I could also try Gonti, just hit the opponent with Dark Confidence. They would need Wash Away. I guess with the medallion, any 2-mana counter that's not double blue could still work. Yeah, I think I still prefer just double spelling connections and Outcast, which sets up our Ninjutsu. And now I've got 3 creatures that can also trigger Gonti. Opponent found their red mana, so Brawl is now an option. Oath of Chandra takes out Dark Confidence. Still drew us 2 cards, so can't complain. And a Deep Cavern Bat can also check out if the coast is clear. Now that Dark Confidence is gone, I think I go all 3 modes initially. And then we'll start with the bats. And then I can still play Gonti afterwards. Alright, River's Rebuke. Although the problem is there's also Mizzix's Mastery. So I guess I still take the Rebuke, and then they'll have to abrade the bat first before they can cast it. And I think I still prefer Gonti over Nashi. Put some cards in exile. So the opponent's plan is abrade the bats and then set up a River's Rebuke. Opponent's gonna draw 2 first to try and hit our land drop, which they did. And abrade now. Well, we could still find a different discard spell, but then I guess Mizzix's Mastery is still an issue. Don't want to make a token since it's just going to get bounced, but we'll trigger the other 2 modes. Did find a Thoughtseize, but again, that's not enough by itself. So I guess we'll start by attacking. Could put in Nashi, picking up the Outcast. See what we hit. Opponent falls to 6. Plenty of lands, and a Torrential Gearhulk too. So that's what we found off Nashi. Can only get back instants, I believe. So can get back my Thoughtseize. Is there another instant I want to cast? Could go for a Rain of Revelation, but that's going into the opponent's graveyard. Yeah, I guess I'll still cast the Gearhulk, although then if they rebuke, they'll pick it back up. So maybe that's actually bad for me. Yeah, I'll just play the Swamp here then. And then can still Midnight Clock into Thoughtseize, although again Midnight Clock would get bounced by the rebuke back to their hand. So this might just be Thoughtseize. See Rebuke Mastery, take Rebuke, and then they'll have to exile it with a Mastery. And probably no point in casting anything else here. I guess the treasure's gonna go away. So fine, I guess we'll play the Changeling. Alright, so this is gonna be a bit of a setback. But at least they're not overloading Mizzix's Mastery now. So we've got to rebuild. And then I guess there's still a mana short of casting Brawl. We do get to do pretty much whatever we want here. I think getting connections going again seems worthwhile. I want to play Gonti before I play anything from Exile. So that's probably not happening this turn. So we'll play connections. Transformer and Outcast looks good. There's Rawl. Draw 3, discard 2. Getting rid of some counter spells. And our opponent scoops it up, so yeah, next turn we could play Gonti and then start playing stuff out of exile to make treasures, hit the opponents, maybe sneaking in Nashi once again, and that'll do it. Sweet, on to the next one. Alright, we're on the play, facing Bonny, a blue-green ramp deck. The fact that it has reach is pretty relevant in this matchup. Still gonna try and keep a hand with a good amount of disruption. And then hopefully Gonti can provide the card advantage. Turn 1 will Inquisition instead of Eye Twitch to maybe take a 1-mana elf. No 1-mana elf, but a 2-mana Loam Speaker. And then the opponent's hand's pretty slow. So hopefully it stays that way. Alright, now we can set up a Nashi on 3. Opponent plays Boots. And yeah, Nashi could hit something big. A Harling's not bad. We'll hang on to Grief. And then Gonti could line up well here. Now I think I will Grief just to check out that the coast is clear. Keep Shoot the Sheriff. And no counterspell. Uro, I guess I could take here, but yeah, opponent has seen enough. Their hand shredded apart, no early plays, and then we get to get super far ahead with Nashi and Gonti's ability. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, facing Emmara, green-white tokens. Our hand's got potential. Fatal Push can deal with their commander. Changeling to make sure we can keep hitting them, or to enable ninjutsu. Alright, Skrelv can now protect Emmara, so that's gonna stop our Fatal Push pretty much. Save the attack, but I doubt it. And then I may as well push Skrelv now. Alright, let's try ninjutsu then. And hope to get lucky. Can play a Mystic. So it could have been better. Now we're looking at Rankle, although opponent already gets to make a token here, so they can just sacrifice that to Rankle's ability. Opponent draws of Tokasia's Welcome. Although I guess if they want to prevent Nashi's ability from hitting them, then they're blocking with a Soldier, and then Rankle can get rid of Emmara. So that's still probably the play over Gonti. Maybe shouldn't have played my land yet. Prefer the Outcast over the Elvish Mystic. Opponent just takes the hit. So each player sacks a creature. and discards a card. I may as well draw since our opponent's got a million cards in hand. And then we still have to wait for Nashi's ability. Found a cut down, so that can answer Emmara. And I'll play a Cold Steel Heart. Okay, so that worked out. And yeah, that's good enough. Sweet, on to the next one. Alright, we're on the play, facing Anzrag, the Quake-Mole, a creature that can hit quite hard. Our hand seems functional. We've got our flyer to enable Gonti, some removal. Although might struggle to take care of a 4 toughness creature. Opponent thinking about their turn 1 play, implying that they've got more than one option. Just goes for the Surveil land. Alright, I'll hit for 1, and then we can heist. Could gift a card, maybe hit a ramp card of the opponent's deck. In case we fail to draw lands. And they did have a Llanowar Elves. There's Ruby as well. Chaos Warp, so yeah, with Ruby they would have been able to also play Llanowar Elves in the same turn. Yeah, I guess we'll take Ruby. And then their turn's not quite as efficient. Now Grief could also take the Questing Beast. Ruby March the Llanowar Elves is probably the starting point. Does kind of feel like they might have a 1 mana instant in hand. So I think we'll wait to march in the opponent's turn. That way if they want to protect the elves, they can't cast their 4-drop. Opponent's thinking about it, so I think our suspicion was correct. And yep, Timeo Safekeeping will keep the elf alive. Now they could still Chaos Warp. Probably not what they want to use on Ruby or Hope of Ghirapur. So we need 1 more land for Consuming Corruption to take care of Beast or Anzrag. And drew the land. Chaos Warp is an instant. So this might be a Grief turn. Taking the Questing Beast. And then it's another Menace creature that can enable Gonti for us. Could also take the Chaos Warp, of course. Opponent's gonna Chaos Warp their own Llanowar Elves. And yeah, they were hoping to hit something juicy, which they did not. Now Anzrag. 1 unknown in hand. They could also Boseiju my Hope of Ghirapur for what it's worth. Let's just start with Corruption, then they'll have to decide on Boseiju now, and then we can still play Gonti afterwards. And get 2 triggers. Alright, I think it's okay to let them cast non-creature spells here. They might just replay Anzrag. Cut down's not quite gonna work. So let me start by probably attacking with Grief and Hope. See what we find, and then I can also Gonti. Delighted Halfling's basically free with Gonti's ability. Alright, Symbiosis costs 7, and Rising of the Day to give stuff haste. So we could cast a Symbiosis. Although it's not like my deck has any super powerful creatures we could hit. So I think I prefer Gonti. And find into the north I don't have any snow lands. So maybe a Reclamation Sage will come in handy later. And for now, could still cast a Rising to make use of my mana. And pass it back. So Anzrag 8-4, but yeah, it doesn't have a way to punch past our blockers. Alright, and that'll do it. Awesome. So yeah, we got to see this mono-black Gonti deck in action, and from my experience playing the deck, it's pretty clear that opponents do not like it when you exile their cards and then end up playing them to your advantage. So opponents tend to concede pretty quickly as soon as you get a couple hits in with Gonti on the battlefield, but for the games that you actually get to play out that are a bit longer, it actually proves to be a very powerful effect, even though it can take a while to get going. Not every hand is going to be perfect with those evasive creatures to start out, but the deck is also fine playing longer grindy games, despite not actually having any real board wipes, which is one of the concessions I've made in deck building, because we still want to support those small flying creatures, which would be a bit of a nombo if we have too many board wipes in the deck ourselves. So yeah, that's going to do it for today's gameplay. Want to thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a nice day.